Howdy, howdy, this is Mr. Potter. Today we're going to be talking about restricting ourselves. We've already done quite a bit in Scratch and seen all the different things that Scratch can do. So the question is, what can we do with our imagination if we're restricted to only using 10 blocks? So what we're going to do is go to our Scratch website, that's scratch.mit.edu, and we're going to create something. Now the restriction here is that we're going to have to create something using what we've learned, but with only 10 blocks. So I want to talk about the 10 blocks that we have to use. The first block that we have to use is the go-to block. So we can go to any x and y coordinate. Remember, I can click this and make this 50 and make the next one 100. So now when I double click it, my Scratch cat goes to the x50, y100. And by the way, notice that wherever my mouse is, down here you'll see the x and y coordinate for that point. This is going to be the center of our pixel. Notice that when we first start, our cat's starting off at 0, 0. Let me get it at 0, 0 here. So I'll put it perfectly at 0, 0. That's where it's always going to start. So this is one of the blocks that you have to use. The second block that we're going to be talking about is the glide. And we've used the glide before. You may remember when we were late for class, we had the glide that allowed us to move this to a particular location over a number of seconds. So I can move it to the position 50, 100. And have it take 3 seconds to get there. And now when I double click on this step, you can see that it's going to take the slow, easy ride until it gets to those coordinates. So these are the only two motion tabs that you'll be able to use, the only two motion blocks. Now we have some looks that we can use. So we can have our sprite say hello or say anything for a certain number of seconds. We did this when we were late as well. We've also got show and hide. And of course, these should be pretty intuitive. So if I click hide, let me go ahead and double click on hide real quick. It makes my pixel disappear, or it makes my sprite disappear. If I click show, it's going to make it appear. So these allow me to make my sprite disappear and reappear. And then I'm also going to be allowed to use the set size too. So I can set the size to 100%. I can make this number smaller, and if I do that, then that's going to make my sprite smaller. And I can even use this to make a bigger number. Let's make it 250%. Now if I double click, whoa, that's a big cat. So these are the looks tags, the looks blocks that we are allowed to use. Now we also experiment a little with sound, so we can play sound until, oops, not that one. We want the play sound until done. That's the one we're going to be using here. So I can play sound until done. And remember, we talked about how we can change all the different sounds using the sound tab up here. So we can record our own sound, or we can add other sounds to our thing as well. So that's an option. That's our only sound that we get to use. We have to play it until the sound effect is done. We can't limit it for a certain number of seconds. We can't play particular notes or anything. In our control, we're allowed to use wait, which is going to wait a certain number of seconds before it does something. And we're allowed to repeat number. So here's the repeat 10 block. We're allowed to repeat some action a certain number of times. And so this is going to allow us to pause our sprite's action for a while. And this is also going to allow us to have our sprite do things over and over again a certain number of times. We're not going to be allowed to use the forever one like we've done before. And then there's one other tab we have, which is the events. And the one event we're allowed to have is when the sprite is clicked. So this is going to be our starting point. We're not going to be using the flag, and we're not going to be using any other thing where we double click this. We're just going to have when the sprite is clicked. So this is our restriction. So what we have to do is we have to make a program using these 10. Now we can use any number of these. We have to use all of them, but we can use any number of these any number of times. So if I want to use multiple repeats, or if I want to use multiple things, or as we did before, we could have 3 different chains of events, so that when the sprite is clicked, do this stuff, and when the sprite is clicked, do this, and when the sprite is clicked, do this. You may remember this from our Pong video. Now, the other thing to remember is that you've got all these different sprites to choose from. So if you want to add multiple sprites, you're welcome to do that. Not a problem. If you want to add multiple backgrounds, let me move this out of the way just a moment. Oh, let's go back. Let's move this out of the way for the moment. If I want to use multiple backgrounds, remember that we can add backgrounds using this. And of course, you have the option of uploading your own files for a background file or for a sprite file. You are in control, and the purpose of this activity is to do as much as you can with the limited resources that we have. The only thing that we have to use is some combination of these 10 blocks. We can use these 10 blocks as many times as we want, but we have to use them all at least once. So once you've done that, we're going to put our result in the studio. So remember, in a previous video we talked about the studio, and I'm going to have a link for it down in the description, but that's going to be the O'Connor High School Studio. So there's a link to this down in the description. We've already got a couple of videos here, a couple of programs that we've written. You're going to put your program down here as well. So this is your activity. This is what you're going to be working on. Once again, this is Mr. Potter. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.